So if you follow my Instagram, you'll know that recently I've actually finished a 12-week cut. And during this 12-week cut, I actually lost 6 kilograms worth of body fat. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with the results and I'm pretty happy with what happened during it. And I'm now just about to tell you a few things that happened during it, the struggles that I put up with, and ultimately how I navigated around them, as well as how I made life easier whilst trying to actually lose this weight. So basically, I woke up one morning and thought to myself, fuck me, I'm getting a little bit fat. I'm going to start trying to lose a little bit of fat. Because I don't really like it when there's like coaches or PTs out there who preach weight loss to everybody, but then don't actually try it themselves. Or they don't actually apply the shit that they already teach to other people to themselves. It's a little bit hypocritical in my opinion. So I always believe lead from the front and show them that you can do exactly what you teach. You know what I mean? So what I did was I said to myself, okay, cool, I'm going to give myself a week to eat within a maintenance, which is whereby you eat the amount of calories that you burn off in a regular day, and then gradually start transitioning to a deficit. So reduce my calorie intake down to below the amount of calories that I'm burning off. Now I tend to teach people to go into a moderate deficit, around 10% below your caloric maintenance, in order to make it way more sustainable, way less misery inducing, and by expansion actually start to get more results, because I couldn't think of anything worse than reducing my calorie intake down by 500 to 750. That sounds fucking brutal. So that's exactly what I did. I took my caloric intake down by 10% and started to adopt a moderate deficit. And these are the things that I noticed whilst trying to do this. So firstly, the scales fluctuate massively. I started at 83.5 kilograms and I ended at 77.1 kilograms. But that wasn't a linear decrease. It didn't go down every single time that I weighed myself. In actual fact, the complete opposite happened. It did this. It went up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. There was one day where I weighed in at 82 kilograms, and then the next day I shot straight back up to 83 kilograms. And this is just the nature of the game when you use body weight. Weight fluctuates as quickly and as easily as simply eating something salty the night before and therefore retaining a lot of water for your morning weigh-in. It doesn't mean you've put on body fat, especially if you're not eating in a caloric surplus. It just means that your body is holding on to weight in other forms. And as I said, it does so sporadically. So what you cannot do is base the choices and decisions you're going to make over the course of the day on what you read on the scale. Because there's a lot of people out there who'd probably see an increase in their weight in the morning when they weigh themselves and then think to themselves, oh fuck, I've gone up in weight, therefore I'm now going to restrict myself throughout the entire day. I'm not going to eat anything until tea time, and ultimately I'm just going to try my absolute hardest to get this weight back down. That is not what you should do at all. You should literally just say to yourself, my weight is fluctuating, I'm just going to continue to do what I've been doing. Because if you just continue to do what you've been doing, create your regular deficit, go to the gym, and just live life how you've been doing prior to this, then that weight will fluctuate again and it will fluctuate downwards. The thing that you need to look at instead is the trajectory of the weight over the course of a few days or a few weeks. Use body weight in the long term rather than in the short term to dictate progress. Because sure enough, I weighed myself again and again and again and again, and by the end of the week, the average amount of weight which I was, so I added up all of the weight that I measured in over the course of the week and then divided it by 7, it actually went down from the week prior, even though at some points it was actually higher than what I weighed in at the week prior. So don't base your choices throughout the day on the weight on the scales, because you're only going to end up in a little bit of a miserable state, and you know, we don't want that. The second thing that I noticed really helped is don't reduce your portion sizes. Now this might sound a little bit weird considering everybody tells you if you want to lose weight, you've got to reduce the amount of food that you eat. No, you've got to reduce the amount of calories that you eat, not the amount of food that you eat. Even the government say to you, oh, if you want to lose weight, reduce your portion sizes. Don't fucking listen to them. I mean, the way that they handled COVID is, you know, a little bit questionable. So why the fuck are you listening to them when they say, oh yeah, you need to reduce your portion sizes if you want to lose weight? You need to do the complete opposite. Because remember, hunger is regulated based on the amount of food in your stomach rather than the amount of calories that you're intaking. So you need to reduce your calorie intake, but not necessarily reduce the amount of food that you're eating. And by expansion, you probably should actually increase the amount of food that you're eating. And the way to do this is include more nutrient-dense, low-calorie foods into your general diet. And I'll give you an example of this. Now, I have this pasta dish that I kind of make with mince, peppers, onions, and fusilli pasta. And usually it comes to around, 200 grams in total for one portion, something like that. So what I did was I thought to myself, right, how can I actually increase the volume of food that I'm eating, but also reduce the calorie intake? So what I did was I reduced the amount of pasta in the dish, I reduced the amount of cheese that I put on the dish, and I increased the amount of onions, peppers, and chopped tomatoes that I actually put in the dish. Before you know it, I was actually eating 50 grams more, so the meal itself was about 250 grams, for about 80 calories less because of the amount of pasta and the amount of cheese that I actually reduced from the meal itself. So I was eating less calories, but more food. And why this is good is because obviously I wanted to reduce my calorie intake down in order to be creating a calorie deficit, but it actually filled me up for longer as well because I was eating more food. So I wasn't, hungry later on, I didn't snack as much, and I was more satisfied. So try and find a way to eat as much as you can, but also reducing the calorie intake down to create a calorie deficit, as opposed to just reducing the amount of food that you're eating. Because if you just reduce the amount of food that you're eating without really paying attention to the calories, you're going to be fucking starving, and therefore you're going to be more likely to overeat later on in the day. And one more thing which I noticed, whilst obviously losing fat, is you don't need to make huge, massive changes to your life in order to accrue fat loss. Which is mad because a lot of people do say to you, oh yeah, if you want to lose weight, you're going to have to make huge changes to your life. No, you don't. I didn't do any extra cardio. I didn't train more than what I usually did. I didn't cut out anything that I wanted to cut out. All I did was I made smaller, smarter, more manageable changes to my life in order to make them accumulate and therefore produce a big outcome. So for example, I play football twice a week. I do training on a Wednesday and I do a game on a Saturday. During these training sessions in the match, I found myself actually actively trying to put in more effort and therefore more activity during these football sessions. Instead of going to the gym, which is literally 30 seconds across the road, I went to the gym, which is about 10-15 minute walk away, and therefore I increased my activity that way. Because I go to the gym 5 times a week, that's more than an hour of walking extra per week, which I've helped implement. And then obviously it's 10 minutes back as well, so that's another hour, so that's 2 hours a week, which I've increased my step count and therefore my activity by, simply by just going to a gym that's a little bit further away. I use the stairs instead of the lift. I use the stairs instead of the escalators. I spent more time doing chores and doing a little bit around the house in order to clean up. I added tiny little changes to my life in order to slowly start building my activity up and start building the likelihood that I'm creating a calorie deficit up. Instead of going to the pub and drinking nothing but beer, I went to the pub, had 1 or 2 pints of beer, and then switched to a spirit and diet mixer. Instead of getting a taxi into town when I'm going on a night out, I walked. Instead of ordering a large McDonald's Big Mac meal, I instead just ordered 6 nuggets and a wrap of the day. The amount of calorie difference between those 2 meals is about 500-600 calories. I didn't make huge, substantial changes to my life in order to lose that 6 kilograms of body fat. I just made small, more manageable, more accumulative changes which were easier to stick to, easier to sustain, and therefore started to accumulate to make a big difference. All you need to do is just make smarter, more manageable, more mindful choices and start improving your habits and behaviours to correspond with that. And remember, I'm nothing special. Sure, I'm a fitness coach. Sure, my career revolves around trying to help people lose weight, feel confident, feel comfortable, get stronger, and be happier with their body and lives. But that doesn't mean that my body is any different to yours. That doesn't mean that I'm special. It doesn't mean that the things and the methods that I apply to myself will not work for you, because they most likely will if you actually do them. Create a maintenance for a week and try and see if you can track your calories in a maintenance before going into a deficit. Make smarter, more mindful choices to your life instead of making huge, substantial, drastic, unsustainable changes. And don't base the choices and decisions that you're going to make throughout the day on the scales, because the scales can fluctuate. Use them as a long-term measure rather than a short-term metric for success. And if you just stick with what you need to do by creating a calorie deficit, trying to improve your activity and training at the very minimum 2, 3, 4 times a week, you will make progress, a guarantee. And hey, if you don't make progress over the course of 1 or 2 weeks, reduce your calorie intake down by a little bit more, probably try and do a little bit more activity, and maybe add another gym session into your week. Trial and error, baby. If you like this video, make sure that you give it a like. If you've got any questions you want to ask, comment below because I'd be more than happy to answer them for you. And if you want to catch the next one, make sure that you're either subscribed to me or following on my Instagram. Peace.